If anyone was going to be irrationally high on Bijan Robinson, it would be yours truly, right? Like my final year at the University of Texas, he was our starting running back. I mean, I interviewed this man at the NFL draft, and he was one of the coolest guys I've ever had the chance to talk to. So you would think that this year in fantasy football drafts, I would take Bijan Robinson every chance that I get, but with how boards have been falling, I'm not going to lie to you. I have drafted Bijan Robinson in less than 1% of our drafts so far. I'm about 140 drafts in, and I'm not taking him at all. I'm going to be talking about exactly why. I also want to dive into the realistic outcome of his rookie season. But before we get into it, you better be dropping a like on this video. You better be subscribed if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you play fantasy football, you are going to love flogfantasy.com. Over there on flogfantasy.com, you can find all of my 2023 fantasy football rankings. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription and all the premium content of your favorite fantasy football creators. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, yours truly will go through and break down your fantasy football team in a podcast. But let's go through and let's dive into Bijan Robinson. A couple different things I want to be looking at. One, what did he do at the University of Texas? Well, he cemented himself as the best running back in college football and the best prospect that we have seen since Saquon Barkley. The University of Texas, he goes out there and you immediately see that he was as good as he was sold to be coming out of high school. His true freshman season, where in only 9 games, he goes out there and has 703 rushing yards. Now, of course, if you're going out there and averaging 20 carries a game, 703 rushing yards, not going to be that impressive. But if you were looking at the volume he did this with, it's absurd. Literally 86 rushing attempts to the 703 rushing yards you had from Bijan Robinson. You see the talent immediately, 8.2 yards per carry, year one. Now, what did you need to see from Bijan Robinson still? What you needed to see is the ability to handle a large workload, the ability to go out there, command a volume, and also improve as a pass catcher overall. Well, Bijan Robinson in year 2 did just that, and this is when he came out and said, yes, I'm the best running back in college football. Year 2, he goes out there and he averages about 20 carries a game, but more importantly, the man dominates as a receiver. In 10 games played, he almost has 300 receiving yards. And the main difference that you're going to see with Bijan Robinson versus a lot of other running backs in college is Bijan's not being the last resort in the passing game. It's not like our quarterback standing in the pocket. All of a sudden it collapses. Bijan Robinson standing right next to him, so he just throws him the ball. No, Bijan Robinson is going out there and running real routes. This is very similar to what you had with Saquon Barkley at Penn State. And you'll see in our prospect model, he looks a lot like Saquon Barkley at Penn State. His final season at Texas, he only continues to get better. He averages over 20 carries on a per game basis. The man has almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage and a Texas offense that is not the best in college football, we'll put it that way. So Saquon Barkley, phenomenal production profile at Texas. He goes to the NFL Combine. He shows, yep, I have the athleticism. Yep, I have the size that we are looking for with our running backs. And on top of this, with Bijan Robinson, he goes top 10 in the NFL draft. So if you are looking at our running back prospect model, which we have proven to be more predictive of fantasy football success in particular than NFL Draft Capital or Fantasy Football ADP, you'll see that Bijan Robinson checks every single box that we look at. And for this reason, he scored in an elite range. Bijan Robinson scored a 28 in our running back prospect model. The only running back to have ever scored higher since 2014 has been Saquon Barkley. So essentially over the past decade, you have Saquon Barkley, then Bijan Robinson as prospects. Now, Leonard Fournette was right up there. Remember how good of a prospect Leonard Fournette was coming out of LSU. Top 5 NFL draft pick, elite size, elite athleticism, and a phenomenal pass catcher. The guys right below this as well, you had Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, Todd Gurley, Najee Harris, as well as Travis Etienne. So Bijan Robinson, yes, an incredible prospect overall. Now, if we're going to go through and look at some of the running backs that we have seen in this model just absolutely dominate as rookies, what I want to do is not just limit ourselves to these top options. I want to have a realistic understanding of how good a rookie running back can truly be in fantasy. Because right now, Bijan Robinson is being drafted as the running back 2 off the board in these underdog drafts. You have Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, then Austin Eckler. We'll get to the overall draft strategy that we have with Bijan and honestly why I haven't taken him much in just 1 second. But of course, if you want to get into these underdog drafts, it's not too late. We are streaming them every single day on the live stream. Best ball, so no time commitment at all during the season. Drafted over 700 teams on Underdog last year, won over $150,000. You know we'll be drafting over 700 teams again on the live stream this year. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you can get into drafts with us. And with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match. You are going to get our 2023 fantasy football rankings and a free trial to flockfantasy.com. So make sure you're taking advantage. But if we're going and looking at the best rookie running back seasons that we've seen in recent memory, right? We are going to be looking at the best running back seasons that we've seen from a rushing yards per game perspective since the year 2000. You have guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Alfred Morris, Adrian Peterson, Clinton Portis, Mike Anderson, Doug Martin, Josh Jacobs. One big difference with Bijan Robinson compared to all these other running backs is Bijan Robinson is a better pass catcher than the majority of these guys. So instead of just looking at the fantasy finishes that you have with the guys that led with rushing yards per game, let's just look at the best fantasy assets, period, right? I mean, we can go back to 2018 with Saquon Barkley. Like we were saying, this is the comp for Bijan Robinson if you were talking about elite prospects. Saquon Barkley, 2018, was the running back 2 from a points per game perspective. You had Leonard Fournette, 2017, the running back 7 from a points per game perspective. Y'all remember Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, just coming on full force in their rookie year. You had Ezekiel Elliott, running back 3 points per game. Adrian Peterson, running back 5 points per game. So we've seen throughout history, it is very possible for running backs in their rookie year to go out there and post a top 5 finish at the position. Now, at the same time, Bijan Robinson is stepping into a phenomenal situation. Now, yes, you're not expecting the Atlanta Falcons to be a top 3 offense in the NFL. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not the Buffalo Bills. But what they are is they are a factory for fantasy football points at the running back position. We didn't really get to see this throughout the entire season last year because, if you're looking at their entire running back core, it was just one guy getting injured after the next guy, after the next guy. It was a platoon of running backs that you had through the entire season. You had a day 3 running back in Tyler Algier, who, definitely was impressive, right? Way better than I thought he was going to be, way better than everybody thought he was going to be. He went and he actually dominated in one fantasy football leagues at the very end of this past season once he was able to break out and once he was able to stay fully healthy in this Atlanta Falcons offense. If we were looking at weeks 14 through 18 and going from a points per game perspective, you had Tyler Algier only behind Cam Akers, Derrick Henry, James Conner, Austin Eckler, Jarrett McKinnon, Christian McCaffrey. Tyler Algier was a mid-running back 1 his rookie season at the very end, despite not having too impressive of an overall talent profile. Now, a big reason you're going to ask yourself is, okay, well, how can this happen if the Atlanta Falcons aren't that good of an offense? It's because Atlanta wants to run the ball over and over and over again. Let me introduce you to Arthur Smith here. Arthur Smith took over as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans in 2019. He was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee for 2 years, where the Tennessee Titans were the 7th and 2nd leading teams in rushing attempts in those 2 seasons. Now, keep in mind, yes, they had Derrick Henry. So, of course, if you have Derrick Henry, you're going to go through and you're going to look to run the ball every single down that you have, right? If you're built around an elite running back, what you're going to do is you're going to run the ball just like Arthur Smith did. And he actually wasn't really able to do this in 2021. He takes over as the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons in 2021, where the Atlanta Falcons are at the bottom of the NFL in terms of their rushing attempts on a per game basis. But also, a big thing I want to point out is the personnel that the Atlanta Falcons had in 2021. The Falcons, at the end of the day in this season, had no running back they could consistently rely upon. Not only did they have no running back they could consistently rely upon, but also this was a team that was primarily losing games. I mean, their top running backs were a 30-year-old Cordell Patterson, a 28-year-old Mike Davis. So yeah, if those are your top running backs, you're probably not going to run the ball as much as you would have if you had Derrick Henry. But what is very telling of Arthur Smith, and not only is he willing to run the ball over and over again with Derrick Henry, but also the following season where, yeah, the overall running back room isn't great, right? You have Tyler Algier seeing a bunch of work. You have Cordell Patterson seeing work. You have Caleb Huntley seeing work. You have Avery Williams. You have a platoon of guys because you just have constant injuries to your running back room. And this past year, he decides to make the Atlanta Falcons the number 2 offense in the NFL in carries. And this is under the context that they go out there and they're 7-10. It's not like the Atlanta Falcons are leading these games and they're able to just run the clock out. No, they're running the clock out even if they shouldn't be. So you've seen Arthur Smith want to lead the NFL in rush attempts. I think we get confirmation with this when he goes out there and when he takes Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall. So with Bijan, we have a couple different things in play. And this is why people want to draft him as early as they are. You have him as an elite level prospect. I don't think anybody's going to argue against that. I think we can all agree that Bijan Robinson is the best running back prospect that we've seen since Saquon Barkley. On top of this, you have Bijan Robinson going to a team that wants to run the ball over and over and over again. Now you sprinkle on the fact that we've seen historically running backs can finish top 5 in fantasy as rookies. It's not the wide receiver position. It's not tight end. It's not quarterback where those guys need time to develop. No, if you're a running back, you have the athletic profile that these teams look for. It's not too hard to understand an NFL scheme. Now, of course, I'm just a small nerd. I can never truly understand what goes into being an NFL player, but to my small understanding of the position, it's okay. Yeah, we pretty much need to run in that hole. Let's go. Or, okay, we need to run in this hole. Or, okay, we're going to fake it here and go. Okay, I think there's not too much to the running back position in terms of the overall game plan. Whereas obviously at tight end, you're having to learn blocking schemes. Obviously at tight end, you're having to go through and develop that chemistry with the quarterback and the routes that you're going to be running. So much more is going to be going into a position like that where we've seen running backs, they can hit the ground running. So if we're going to go and combine all those factors, Bijan Robinson is a very exciting running back this upcoming season. Now, the question is exactly how exciting is he? Because in the majority of these drafts, Bijan Robinson goes pick 6, 7, 8. I mean, he used to go picks 4, 5, 6 right after the NFL draft, but that's cooled down a bit. Now he's going to be a mid-round 1 selection in these underdog drafts. And this is my main issue, right? Because if I'm trying to break down the running back tiers, with Bijan Robinson, I 100% see the pros. Like I said, you would think I would be all over this guy, and I love the man. In reality, is he that much better than Austin Eckler? Is he that much better than Jonathan Taylor? Exactly how much better is he than Saquon Barkley? Because if we're going to figure out how to answer those questions, I think that would help us a lot, right? Because if we're going to go through and draft Bijan Robinson, say the wide receiver that's going directly ahead of him is going to be Cooper Kupp in these underdog drafts. And we know on underdog, it's best ball. You have to start 3 wide receivers. You know how wide receivers fly off the board. You have to at least grab 1 or 2 of these wide receivers in the early rounds. You can't go running back in every round, even if those are your favorite values. So we have to kind of pick and choose our spots. So the question is, would I pass up on a Cooper Kupp level player to go through and draft Bijan Robinson? And the answer for this format is probably not. Whereas if I really wanted a running back that we think can be a top 5 overall option this next season, like I believe Bijan Robinson can, I'm going to be looking at Saquon Barkley, where I'm like, okay, yeah, if I'm going to be realistic with myself here, I think that Saquon Barkley is probably a comparable player to Bijan Robinson this next season in fantasy. Now, I understand Bijan is the younger, more exciting player. And if I were to rank these guys in a vacuum, yes, I would have Bijan Robinson over Saquon Barkley. But that's not the question, because the question is you either get Bijan Robinson in the middle of round 1 or Saquon Barkley in the middle of round 2. So the actual question is, would I rather have the combination of Cooper Kupp and Saquon Barkley, or would I rather have the combination of Bijan Robinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown? Bijan Robinson and Jalen Waddle. And in my mind, the gap that you have from Bijan to Eckler to Taylor to Barkley, that's going to be a much smaller gap than what I would give in terms of the gap between a wide receiver like Cooper Kupp down to a player like Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle. Now, that's not to say don't draft Bijan Robinson in a regular, shallow redraft league, right? Where you're starting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. In that format, hell, go for it, my man. You're going to be able to find wide receivers later on in the draft, and I'm going to be completely fine taking Bijan Robinson round 1 there, and I would be willing to take him in the same range as Eckler, Taylor, Barkley. I think it's going to be up to you with who you would prefer in that tier of running backs, and that's the entire point of this video. Because if you're drafting on Underdog where you can get one of those guys in the middle of round 2, I'd probably just grab whoever falls to the middle of round 2. Now, obviously, if you're playing in your shallow redraft league, you should assume that all those running backs are off the board by the time we get to round 1. So there, it's just kind of pick your poison, right? Go through and grab whichever running back that you want in that range. I'd love to know what y'all have to say down there in the comment section, like who you would take in your draft between Bijan Robinson and Austin Eckler. But I mean, I don't know. I want to get in on him. I kind of want to make this video saying, please, let's let Bijan Robinson start falling in the Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor range so I can start drafting him, stop drafting him so much ahead of those guys where I don't even have the option. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and checking out the video. If you have not done so, drop a like. If you want to get my 2023 fantasy football rankings, you can on flockfantasy.com, or you can and get in a draft at the same time by going and signing up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. You'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And on top of that, if you are a member of both flockfantasy.com and Underdog Fantasy, you can go and claim your exclusive Underdog/Flock merch. You can do that in our Discord. And on top of that, if you are a paid member of flockfantasy.com and you have an Underdog Fantasy account, go put your Underdog username in your flockfantasy.com account page. You'll see a little spot for it, and you'll get automatic credit added to your Underdog account for free. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. But thank you again. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. Really hope I get to see you with the video tomorrow.